Good morning, everyone. Lee Henson here, President and Founder of AgileDad, and it's time for today's edition of the Daily Stand-Up. So without any further ado, let's get started. Today I wanted to talk to you about something that was recently brought to my attention, something I discovered that's super duper cool. There's actually a weekly newsletter that comes out that was brought to my attention, and this newsletter, let me tell you, it is light years ahead of everything else that I have read. This newsletter capitalizes on what is the best of the best in the Agile community. The name of the newsletter is called Agile Curated, and my good friend Jess there, she runs the operation, she runs the show, and let me tell you, this is top notch. Each week, what she does is she'll scour all the different articles on different Agile topics. She'll scour the internet looking for some of the best things she could find. And she puts together this really cool one-page newsletter that covers the content for that week. Usually it's 5 topics, and she'll cover those 5 topics. And basically what she does is she gives you direct links to those topics. So instead of you having to go out and read hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of articles that have been posted each week, she gives you an opportunity to go straight into the newsletter and see the top 5 heavy hitters, as you will. And then from there, she also puts a list of featured jobs for the week, which I thought was super cool because there's a lot of people out there looking. So she gives employers a chance to post their jobs here and have their jobs featured in the newsletter. And she also goes through and lists jobs, and they're all over the place. This past week, for example, we have one in Colorado, one in Virginia, one in Arkansas. So they're not just one specific geographic area. So I thought that was super cool too. And then at the very end, she always gives you what she calls Jess's perspective. And I love that she puts her own personal touch on this. It's a great opportunity for her to share her thoughts. And her thoughts are always pretty wise. I thought that was pretty cool. So the thought for this week, for example, it says, Agile is rooted in humanity. So it is especially admirable that the Agile Alliance is actively and consistently influencing the broader Agile community to prioritize racial justice and equity. So hot topic, good information, lots and lots of good stuff there. So what I wanted to do this week, I want to do something kind of unique and something fun. I'm going to pick on a couple of the topics from the Agile Curated newsletter. I'm going to review those topics, and then we'll have a discussion about those this week. And hopefully you'll have an opportunity to go over to agilecurated.com and subscribe to the newsletter. It's definitely worth it. It's a single page. It only takes a few minutes of your time. And even if you archive these to go back to later and read, it's just there's always been some consistently good content from whether it's Agile Alliance or posted on Reddit or Bob Galen or Scaled Agile or Scrum.org. There's always something there. So for starters, I thought it would be fun to talk about one of the posts. It's called Sometimes Agility Requires an Act of Congress. And this one was posted by SAFE, or Scaled Agile Framework. And it was really, really cool for me to read this because, I do a lot of work within the DoD. And one of the things that I didn't realize is that there is a piece of current legislation that's in play. So I'm going to read this letter to you, and then we'll talk about the legislation, and I'll give you my thoughts in the background. It says, this notification is from a gentleman named Mark. It says, Hi, folks. It's an exciting time for the Agile community as Congress considers provisions that would encourage broad adoption of lean, Agile ways of working within the United States Department of Defense. The National Defense Authorization Act is a set of laws specifying how the annual DoD budget is allocated, and it's being revised for 2021. It's currently under review by the Senate after having been approved by the House of Representatives. Section 1710N of the newest bill specifically enables the use of Agile methods to scale within the Department of Defense and the U.S. Armed Forces. How cool is that? We're excited to see that Congress recognizes the value of leveraging proven Agile practices to enable mission success and is preparing to remove statutory and policy-based impediments to widespread adoption of those practices. So this is just awesome. It's a great letter. There are a lot of different companies that are providers of lean, Agile, DevOps guidance to the DoD, and we should all be committed to helping the Department of Defense partners improve agency time to mission success, taxpayer value, and warfighter capability. We look forward to the Department of Defense's broader adoption of Agile practices in 2021 and beyond. Stay safe, Mark. Now, it's no surprise that, lots of different initiatives, whether it's the Agile Alliance or the Scrum Alliance or SAFE, Scaled Agile, that they're taking advantage of, this opportunity to engage finally with the Department of Defense and to help them, enact things that are going to help them, gain better traction and help them to successfully implement, business agility within the Department of Defense. I do want to point out that this is not something that is new hat, right? In fact, NDA Section 804 was written back in 2010, and the Department of Defense recognized Agile even back then. So this isn't something that's relatively new, but I think it's something that's more exciting than it is new. It reveals an opportunity for Agile coaches and for people who are Agile practitioners to really dig in a little deeper and see what they can do to help make sure that the government and specifically the Department of Defense has an opportunity to really apply what we've been trying to do. And I think that's the key. One of the things I've noticed within the Department of State or the Department of Defense and the Department of Welfare, there's just been a lot of, how should I put it, a lot of talk and not a lot of action there. That's probably the easiest way. So it's amazing to me when it comes up over and over again, year after year. Hey, this is something we need to do. We're going to put things in place. We're going to empower people to do it. And then they say, okay, now what? And when they go to do it, they're like, oh, this is scary. I don't want to touch it. So it's incredibly interesting to see, how Congress is treating this. And I guess my big question is this. Does the 116th Congress really understand what Agile is? Or do they understand it to the point where they can make this type of decision regarding business agility? Or are they simply, doing this out of, hey, this sounds good, it's going to save us money, and let's move in this direction? What I can tell you personally from firsthand work that I've done within the government, within the Department of Defense, and for several contractors that work with the Department of Defense, is that I really believe that they want to be on the cutting edge and that they want to try a little harder than some of the other departments do. And whether it's Health and Human Services or Department of State, all great departments, I just feel like, for some time, the Department of Defense has tried to push forward. And I think, this is a result of things in the past that haven't worked. Many of us know the story of the F-35 fighter and the antiquated software that was put in it and how long it took to get to market and how much, additional funding it cost to try to get that thing moving. There's just so many opportunities here. And I think more than anything, this excites me because of the opportunities. So I really do believe that Agile is a great fit for the Department of Defense. I believe that, moving in that direction is going to be a good thing. But I do think it's going to be a long time coming before they're able to get it done right in a broad enough scale that they'd have an opportunity to scale, no pun intended. I think it's just one of those things where they have to fundamentally get the practices right. And I'm concerned that, a lot of times within the government, they'll look for the person who has the cheapest bid or the organization that has the least expensive rate to fill the pothole. And what may clearly happen, as it has on other, in other organizations, is if you're always looking for the cheapest person to fill the pothole, the pothole's going to keep reoccurring. Where if you spend a little more money and get the right service, you're going to have, good provisions, and you're not going to have to worry about that pothole ever coming back. So my hope is that the government will realize this and spend a little bit of extra money to get really qualified coaches and teams and organizations in there to really help them be successful and to accelerate their time to market, because it is an exciting time and there's lots going on. And my hope is that we'll be able to really embrace the Department of Defense and pull them in and do what's right. So thanks to Jess from Agile Curated for bringing that one to my attention. That's an awesome article. And you can continue on and click through to congress.gov, see the actual William M. Thornberry National Defense Authorization Act for the fiscal year 2021. You can review the comments from the 116th Congress. You could see it go through vote. I mean, this is just a super cool way for you to be kept in the loop, regardless of where you come from in your Agile background. So I hope this information was helpful to you. I know it was helpful to me. As always, I encourage you to, tune in to the Agile Dad Daily Stand-Up Podcast. Visit the Agile Dad website for more information. But most importantly, go subscribe. Go subscribe to Agile Curated. Subscribe to this podcast. It really is going to help us make leaps and bounds when it comes to doing some great things. So as always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.